Welcome to our presentation. This is Mental Health and Genetics, and I'm Teagan Everts. Genetics of Alzheimer's disease in elderly men. What is Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia that takes place most frequently in those who are above the age of 60. Dementia is an overall term that describes a decline in mental ability that interferes with daily life. It affects memory, thinking, and behavior. People with dementia often have symptoms like trouble remembering, thinking, or making everyday decisions. These symptoms tend to get worse over time. Family pedigree. So I chose to study Alzheimer's because the older men on my father's side of the family had always been affected by it. From my grandfather to his father and my great-great-grandfather. So by inference, I'm guessing there's a genetic association, especially in the fact that it only affects the men and it doesn't affect my mother's side of the family. So I believe Alzheimer's is a common trait in the men who are 60 and up in age on my father's side of the family pedigree. I also believe that it is correlated with excessive drinking because I noticed those people who were affected by the disease also had a tendency to indulge in alcoholic beverages. So I believe there is a genetic cause to Alzheimer's disease, which could mean that it is also a dominant trait, but it can also be influenced by accelerated drinking in my family. So what can cause elderly men in my family to have Alzheimer's? So Alzheimer's disease can be passed down through mutations in several different kinds of genes, but the most notable one is the APOE gene. The APOE gene's purpose is to produce apolipoprotein, E, which transports cholesterol and fats through the bloodstream. There are three kinds of the APOE gene with different variants. There's the APOE2, which is the least common of the genes, and it actually can reduce your risk of getting Alzheimer's. Then there's APOE3, which is the most common because it doesn't like prevent or necessarily heighten your risk of getting Alzheimer's. It's sort of like a middle ground, it's neutral. And the one I believe my family contains is the APOE4, which is noted to increase the risk and bring about more severe cases of the disease. So it's likely that my family had that APOE4 gene and it was passed down through my father's side. And it's also a semi-dominant gene, so like even one allele of this gene can increase the risk of the disease. So another factor is the chromosomal makeup. Women have two XX chromosomes, which they have 19 genes on the chromosome, and they are linked to the cognition and quantity of neurofibrillary tangles. So it increases the expression associated with slower cognitive decline, and these genes were not increased in men. So it can so the progression of Alzheimer's tends to be faster in men than it is in women. So it suggests that developing Alzheimer's at a higher age is more likely than in women, because in women they tend to experience symptoms a little earlier on than men if it is genetic. There can also be other factors involved that I'll get into later. Another factor I notice is the lowering testosterone levels with age. That can also have a play in the development of Alzheimer's in men because testosterone has some neuroproductive effects which can reduce things such as oxidative stress, which is a degeneration of cells, which has been noted a symptom of dementia through degenerating like brain cells and shrinking them, and inflammatory processes and phosphorylation and amyloid production. And amyloid can like cause plaque buildup on the brain and cause cognitive issues, and all of which are key factors in Alzheimer's pathogenesis. So the trend of the reduction in Alzheimer's very well be a significant reason as to why it also runs on my father's side of the family, because both my father and my grandfather took testosterone medication to level out their hormone levels, and it can cause like excessive use of the gonads and whatnot. External factors. So I have noted in my hypothesis that there may be an association with excessive consumption of alcohol. So I found a study, and they stated that alcohol adds to the cognitive burden seen in dementia through additional mechanisms to neurodegenerative processes, or may contribute to various mechanistic points in genesis and sustenance of Alzheimer's disease via neuroinflammation. So my association with alcoholism and Alzheimer's may very well be likely, and it, if not a cause, it definitely heightens its ability and growth of the Alzheimer's disease. Other additional factors can include like diet, having an unhealthy diet and a sedentary lifestyle, just not doing anything that can cause your brain to just not want to function like it should. Head injuries can also cause Alzheimer's or dementia through like concussions. High blood pressure and diabetes and other metabolic diseases can also be a cause, because they can increase like issues with brain health and circulation. Isolation can also bring a higher risk, because you don't like exercise your brain to focus on communication, and you can actually lose communication skills through social isolation. Air pollution and like exposure to toxins can cause dementia to a certain degree. And factors like living in neighborhoods with less green space can also be linked to increased risk. So my conclusion said that Alzheimer's in men can be brought through several different factors, such as genetics with the APOE4 gene, gender with the lack of the two X chromosomes, leading to a slower natural progression of disease, because we have a Y chromosome connected to our first X chromosome, which causes the progression of Alzheimer's to be much more rapid. Lowering testosterone levels with age can cause a reduction of the neuroproductive benefits of testosterone. And my hypothesis was correct in the fact that the APOE4 gene is a dominant trait, but I was also correct about alcohol and the progression of Alzheimer's. So I was able to I was also able to make connections through factors such as the lowering of testosterone and possible genetic reasons to why it only affects men in my family, such as the chromosomal makeup. And through understanding the genetic and external causes of Alzheimer's, it's possible to find ways to prevent and slow the progression of the disease. And here's my works cited. Thanks.
Is Ninarya, Atiles, Lopez, and I will be talking about genetics of Alzheimer's disease in young women. I wanted to start off with my family pedigree. I decided to study Alzheimer's at a young age because of the women in my family passing away with it so young. My great-grandmother's mother had it, my great-grandmother, and my grandmother. My grandmother was somebody that was super important to me. She was like my favorite person, so I was there through all the steps with her. So I decided to study a little bit more just because of the history in the family and my mother being next. My mom is 60, and there's no signs of it, so I'm thankful for that. But I just want to be aware just in case I need to pay attention more, and for myself as well, since I am in line as well. So for my hypothesis, I chose it is a very rare for someone before the age of 65. I believe it has something to do with the stress and anxiety that the women on my mom's side of the family went through. Some of the research that I did as well came up that only 5 to 6% of all dementia patients are early onset. There are more women diagnosed at this age than men. We do know that genetics can be a huge cause to getting it so young, but we also know it's very difficult to understand the full reason. Hormonal changes have a big factor for it in young women as well. It usually starts with missing just daily tasks like forgetting your appointments, leaving the stove on, or just trouble concentrating on anything. Dementia occurs when a person experiences cognitive decline that leads to loss of the ability to function independently in social or work settings. Some additional factors that I looked up and I studied was the frontal temporal dementia, FTD, also known as frontal temporal degeneration. It's a progressive neurological condition that primarily affects the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain. This is another reason of proof as to why young women have dementia. And there are 7 stages to this. So I went ahead and listed all 7 for you. It is stage 1, no visible symptoms. Stage 2, mild behavioral changes. Stage 3, moderate behavioral changes and apathy. Stage 4 is language and communication difficulties. Stage 5 is loss of motor skills and coordination. Stage 6 is severe cognitive and physical decline. And stage 7 is the late stage, which is the end stage of the FTD. For my conclusion, I just want to do early awareness, early action, and strong support can help women in their 50s face dementia with dignity and hope. It can definitely be genetic, but there is proof that the normal change can cause it as well at a young age. Stress and anxiety is just one of the things that can cause hormonal changes, which hormonal change is a big factor as to why women get it at such a young age. We have to make sure that we all stay informed so we can help educate and know what to look for early in stages for our family, our friends, and also for ourselves. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jenson, and today I'm going to be talking about the genetics of anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is a natural stress response involved in worrying, fear, or tension. It can become a problem when it is persistent, excessive, or disrupts daily life. Its symptoms range from a racing heart, restlessness, trouble concentrating, and sweating. It's caused by a mix of biological factors, thinking patterns, and stressful environments. It's normal in small amounts, but can develop into anxiety disorders when overwhelming. I chose to study anxiety due to both my mother and her father having it from a young age. I personally have not been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, but I've seen the symptoms of it firsthand. So I chose, for my hypothesis, are individuals with a family history of anxiety more likely to exhibit higher levels of anxiety symptoms due to a combination of genetic predispositions or environmental influences? Now, in my research, I found many different things. Let's start with genetic heritability of anxiety disorders. Clinical genetic studies estimate that the hereditability, I can't speak today, of anxiety disorders is substantial, with around 30 to 67%. The specific genes involved. Researchers have identified candidate genes, for example, serotonin-related stress response and receptor genes that may increase variability to anxiety, though anxiety appears to be polygenic, which means that multiple genes can affect it. There's not one specific gene that increases your likelihood for an anxiety disorder. Familia / intergenerational transmission. One study through my research found that children whose parents have anxiety disorders are much likely to develop anxiety disorders themselves, roughly 4 times the risk compared to children of parents without anxiety. Role, environment, and parenting. Though there is a genetic component, there's strong evidence for environmental transmission too. For instance, in a children of twins design, which helps separate genetic from environmental influences, Results suggest that much of the association between parent and child anxiety stems from direct environmental transmission, which can be, for example, involves parenting style and learned behaviors, not just shared genes. Additional factors influencing anxiety: stressful life events. Trauma, major transitions, academic work or pressure, or chronic stress can heighten anxiety levels. Really, anything that's highly stressful can increase anxiety. Personality traits: high sensitivity, perfectionism, or a tendency to overthink can increase vulnerability. Biological factors: hormonal changes, neurotransmitter imbalances, and overactivity in fear processing brain regions like the amygdala. Environmental influences: family dynamics, parenting style, and exposure to anxious behavior. Now, some lifestyle contributors: poor sleep, lack of exercise, substance use, and high caffeine intake can worsen these symptoms. My conclusion: evidence supports the hypothesis that individuals with a family history are more likely to show higher anxiety levels. Research also shows that genetic predisposition contributes greatly to anxiety vulnerability. Environmental factors such as stress, parenting style, and life experiences interact with the genetics to shape anxiety outcomes. Together, these findings highlight that anxiety results from a combination of inherited risk and environmental influence, not one factor alone. Understanding this interaction can guide early awareness, prevention, and effective support strategies. These are my sources. Is there a correlation between Alzheimer's and anxiety? In both Ninarya and Teagan's Pedigree, they both have a presence of anxiety. According to Alzheimer's Research Association, anxiety is a risk factor for both the development of Alzheimer's, anxiety is a risk factor for the development of Alzheimer's. Researchers have discovered links between anxiety and the buildup of several toxic proteins in the brain and brain shrinkage, which can result in a decline in cognitive function. Elevated levels of beta amyloid, a toxic protein that builds up in the brains of those who have Alzheimer's and causes plaques, are correlated with increase of anxiety. This shows that perhaps the beta amyloid plaque buildup as well may be a contributing factor to both the development of adolescent anxiety and the future development of Alzheimer's.